Good morning. Thanks for joining. I'm coming from the Cisco Global Security Sales Organization, which is a new organization at Cisco, completely focusing on selling security and doing security. So we have reorganized a bit at Cisco, and the Global Security Sales Organization is the new form of the whole Cisco offering for security. And it's a global organization that consists of several hundreds of people working with our partners and with our customers to provide you the best security available in the market nowadays. And how we say that we are doing best security in the market nowadays is that we are first saying that things need to be done a bit differently. We need to do security for the real world, as all our slogans are saying, as you can see. And why we need to do things a bit differently than before is that the old-fashioned way of doing layered defenses is gone. There's a couple of reasons why we can say it's gone. And first of all, it's very inefficient. And why it's very inefficient is that when we have separate security solutions doing their things, we don't get to be intelligent enough nowadays and agile enough, so fast-moving enough nowadays to react on these security issues and problems that we are seeing every day. And it's almost like a reason for the first point is the lack of visibility. So by using separate siloed solutions that are not integrated together or are not even developed together, we are not able to generate the visibility we needed to be able to detect these things that we needed to see nowadays. So I'm talking about maybe advanced malware, advanced attacks that we can see doing damage in many of the customer environments. Some of them are ending up being at the headlines, and some of them are not. But that's kind of the state of cybersecurity nowadays, that we needed to be able to be much more intelligent to be able to react on these things that are threatening our environments nowadays. Therefore, the old-fashioned ways, they don't work anymore. And one very tangible thing related to this is as well that the old-fashioned way of doing layered defenses is very labor-intensive, meaning that you need to manually maintain and update and adjust and analyze the data from these solutions to be able to correlate valuable information that you could actually use for making decisions that you needed to be able to make. Either is this threatening me or is this not threatening me, and what should I be doing now? Where should I concentrate my focus on? What I needed to know to be able to remediate from this kind of situation fast enough and thoroughly enough so that it wouldn't rise up again the next day. So, being even more aggressive on this one, I'm also saying that the traditional next generation firewall is also becoming useless, because it's focusing on controlling applications and in control general. So by control, we can diminish the window of a potential attack to be smaller than without, obviously. But still, it doesn't contain the capabilities of really understanding the threats that are facing your environment. And why is that the case? It's based on the lack of visibility again. So it doesn't work if you only see the application version. You can do some far by understanding that these are the applications we're using and we are not supposed to be using. But if we are not able to go beyond that, to really understand what's happening, what's changing, what's going on, and applying this information from different parts of our environment in a very rich form, so that we can actually start seeing things that are not that visible at the first sight, then we are missing the game, unfortunately. And you just have to read the IT news every day, and you can see it happening all the time. So if therefore we are focusing our resources over here in the first phase, as is the traditional way, building controls, we are more and more missing these parts that are getting to be much more critical than the first bits. The first bits is something that quite many are capable of doing well enough. But for cybersecurity, that well enough is not enough. And that not enough consists of lacking the capability of doing detection over here efficiently enough and dynamically enough. And maybe that dynamic enough is actually well describing. If we are using the first generation classic IPS or IDS, we are very static in this phase. And that means that we are always late. And the third bit, this after, is maybe the hardest part, because that means that we needed to be able to contain the situation and first of all admit that we may already have something in our environment, we just don't know it, nobody knows. But when comes the day that we know, then fast actions to scope the situation, what's going on, contain, and then remediate based on the information we have in our hands, and to be able to be for sure that this is actually the scope of the situation. And we are doing thorough work on recovering and making sure that it doesn't happen again is very critical. And even though that we would have perfect solutions for all of these stages, it still wouldn't work. And why is that? Any lucky guess? No?
Define perfect.
Sorry?
Define perfect. What does it mean? If it doesn't work, it's not perfect.
Yeah, exactly. But what makes it incomplete? What do you think?
Lack of signatures.
That could be one. That's still, I would say, a bit like from the old way. But obviously, getting better signatures always helps. But what's missing is the integration, interoperability between these different layers or levels. So if these different layers are able to interact, work together automatically, sharing the information, it makes it so much more powerful. So we can be proactively protecting things by the system or the security architecture itself without the administrator making this hard correlation that actually never happens. And being able to adjust things in time. In time is the key word as well. We would be always late doing this manually. And one thing as well is that it doesn't work if we do it only in here, or let's say only in here, or in here. It needs to go all the way. We need to be able to apply this same thing all across the environment, making dynamic. And therefore, it actually takes us to this thinking of security architecture and a security fabric, that we need to be flexible enough to use these security tools or solutions or solution fabric the way that it actually fits to your unique environment, because your environment is always unique. There's no exactly the same kind of environment. The guy sitting next to you probably has completely different kind of environment you have. So there's no way that this one way of applying these things would work for all the same way. So there's these three things actually we have been describing as some core foundations of these things, that what needed to be taken care of first so that we would be able to go to the right direction, figuring out what we needed to deploy and how to do things. So it needs to be based on visibility. So whole thinking, whole structure, whole architecture, all the solution, they need to be based on visibility. If we are not seeing things, then we are missing things. That's simple. And not just seeing as such, but we need to be able to see deep enough. So we need to have this kind of X-ray eyes, one could say, that are actually providing us context, meaning understanding behind these events, how they are happening, when they are happening, to whom they are happening, under which circumstances they are happening, and etc. So meaning that we understand the background and the frameworks of all these events, which actually gives us much more understanding, especially against these modern threats. And then, when we see things, we need to be capable of understanding what we need to do with them, which ones are malicious and which ones are just something that are not exactly working as a standard, but are still okay. And there we need intelligence, information sharing between these different layers, different solutions are in part of that fabric, and correlation of information that starts giving us actually a brand new view on things, not just based on this signature, this fingerprint, this rule. It's actually something different. I'll come back to that a bit later. But doing that with the solutions, with the information from your own environment, wherever we are collecting it from there, but also by our external security intelligence information we are collecting globally. Also combining that information to the findings from your environment starts actually making a pretty powerful combination. And as said, then we also need to be able to apply it to your environment the way that fits to your environment. So this is the brand new thing for us and from us, for you guys, to be in the forefront actually doing these things. So this actually takes it now all in a sudden very concrete. So I've been talking about how things should be done. Now I actually introduce you a product that is in a very core position of this whole architectural thinking. It's not the whole architecture, but as itself, it actually makes a very powerful, like a sample of this architecture we can do and the capabilities we need for this architecture. So scaling from small environments to the world's largest environments, this is scalable all the way through, the way you need it, the way you like it. So combining the well-known, the world's most sold, most stable, etc. firewall, Cisco ASA, with the SourceFire inherited firepower services. So I'm originally coming from the SourceFire side, so I've been doing the SourceFire stuff for over 6 years. So I know them pretty well inside out. But now making this powerful combination is actually something very unique in the market. So in the first weeks of us bringing this to the market, we have seen very, very positive feedback from the first customers and from the customers that are considering maybe deploying this for themselves. And what's exactly we are providing with this ASA, with firepower services, is listed in 3 main topics over here. We are providing visibility. That's the first thing. You recall a couple of slides back, I was saying about visibility, that it should be the foundation for doing security now. So I'm showing again in a couple of slides how that is being done. But this is like the topics. And then integrated defense, threat defense capabilities, meaning that there is not just one way how we are detecting these threats. We are doing multiple ways, multiple correlated ways that are actually even designed together. They are designed to work together. They are not being taped together to work like on the PowerPoint or on the data sheet. But they are originally designed to work together, which gives you the capability of detecting very, very hard to detect things. And the automation. It's not just because of ease of use. It's definitely for that as well. So automating basic functions in the system helps you a lot on administering the systems. But it actually is as much for making the system work more efficiently and more accurately. Sometimes the CPU can be more clever on correlating things than the human mind. And in this case, we are saying that's the thing. Being a bit more precise on what's consisting of this ASA with firepower services is that first of all, there's the foundation over here. The platform is the ASAX firewall. All the models from the smallest one to the biggest ones. So scalability to several of hundreds of gigs existing from a few, let's say from 50 megs or so, where you're starting from the smallest ones. So it scales all the way through. And obviously all the clustering, BGP, high availability, whatever, firewalling features are existing over there. But then we are adding these intelligent threat protection features on top of the firewalling. And the main things over there are, obviously, we are also doing application visibility and control, for sure. But then we are doing a couple of more things that are actually even more important for this modern threat protecting firewall, not a access control firewall. Obviously, the industry-leading IPS. That's been industry-leading from 2006 by Sourcefire. So this is nothing new in that sense. This is something that has been existing for years and years, actually from the millennium already. So it's well known, especially among the government and high enterprise customers. Then we are doing URL filtering, incorporated in the solution, and then advanced malware protection, which is very unique in our case how we do it. We are not copying FireEye or somebody else. We are doing things a bit differently. And there's a reason why we are doing it like that. So about the visibility, our technology provides you a real-time view on these things. So this is the contextual part we are talking about. Having this information in real time from the environment gives us an ability, first of all, if we are talking about threat protection with the NG-IPS solution, so say, core foundation of the Sourcefire technology earlier. This has been existing for years, but this is something new for ASA customers. So we are able to classify the security events in great detail, being able to give you and the system a focus what's happening, what's going on, which are the critical events and which are not that critical events, where we need to concentrate and focus on. And about the malware protection, what makes it unique is that we are not just doing one way. We are actually be able to do this all over your network, not just on the ASA, but also at the endpoints, at your content security solutions, Cisco ESA, WSA, etc. We are doing point in time, meaning that we are picking up the bad stuff on the fly, which most of the solutions are actually doing. But the differentiator is actually here. Retrospective security, meaning that we are keeping record of all the files we see in your environment all the time. And if some of them will be convicted malicious later on, so nobody just knew that this actually contains something malicious, we are alerting you retrospectively. So we are giving you this kind of a time machine functionality that you can very detailed see where did this malware come into my environment and where exactly it has been all the time, what I need to do to remediate the situation and apply protection all the way back to the control stage. So this first circle in that three-dimensional attack window or attack continuum we saw earlier, that we will be protected against the same thing for the rest of the time. So all of that can be done automatically. And I mentioned that I'll be showing you what I mean about this new visibility that is actually coming slowly together. You know that we have these, I don't know, psychological pictures that if you look at the picture long enough, it starts appearing. I mean, you start seeing a figure in the picture, and this is kind of the same thing. So indicators of compromise means that we have and we are collecting weak signals of something going wrong or not exactly the way it's supposed to be going by the standard from different parts of your environment. It can be these kind of things. And when we get them enough, when we correlate them enough, we will actually start seeing indications of compromise, meaning that most likely higher the number or higher the percentage is, most likely you are being compromised. Did I lose the? No. At this host. And you definitely need to investigate what's going on. For these kind of things, an automated remediation is very hard to figure, because this is something we are detecting undetected. So we don't know for sure exactly what's going on before we probably make a bit further investigation on the thing. But without knowing this information, we would be fat and happy until it hits the fan. We wouldn't know anything before it actually happens or has already happened. Let's say for half a year, and then your stuff is already gone. Or you have been mined already that somebody wants to shut down your environment. It can do it in a snap. So therefore, this is extremely important. If you are taking security seriously, indicators of compromise is the thing nowadays. You need to be able to do this and have a vendor you're using that is able to provide you an ability to use these. So by applying all of this, we are actually fulfilling the needs in this attack continuum. How we do it, and how we say that we are providing you the best-in-class security that is available nowadays. And it's not just that you have to pay a huge amount of money for maintaining this kind of things. This modern technology can actually even save you money. Actually, even save you money because of the automation and doing things a bit more smart than before. So maybe getting rid of some number of your existing security solutions and focusing on doing the things with the solutions we can offer as integrated. And there's even proof of that, so it's not just us you have to believe on saying these things. So we could have like probably 20 pages of these things for you, but I just picked the latest ones. So from last week, the latest NSS Labs Next-Gen Firewall Security Value Map puts Cisco, ding, 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 on the top on everything. Performance, accuracy, whatever you name it. With the ASA, the new ASA firewall, and also with the Firepower 8000 series appliances. So that's a pretty strong proof. And we are definitely happy to provide you all the reports and all the information supporting these findings, so you can see in detail how these results have been measured. Then again, from a bit different perspective, this is more like from the malware protection side. Again, the same story. Earlier on this year, in April, was this actually that was released. Oops. Sorry. We are there on top again. And what comes to the IPS, sorry, there's a little bug on the slide over here, but we are on top of here as well for next generation firewalls, which is a strong evidence from that part. So I'd like to conclude the presentation. I've been talking about kind of principles, how things should be done, and then putting them in a framework, how you can get them the easiest way by deploying the Cisco ASA firewall, the new Cisco ASA firewall. But the full story is actually a bit longer. When we are working beyond that, we actually have the whole Cisco security architecture supporting this same thing. And this is something that you probably will hear a bit more about from my colleague Janne, who's over here and has his presentation later on today. So I'm not going too deep on this one in this presentation, but giving you a flavor what we actually can offer you in the full scale. So again, visibility, context, how we are actually providing it even in a larger scale with all the solutions, technologies, services, and also integration with some third parties, because you might even have some third-party stuff in your network. Everything might not be just Cisco. So even with your other third-party solutions, we can integrate with this fabric to be able to provide you really the best security solution and architecture you can have and think of nowadays. Any questions this far?
So what is at the heart of detection? Is that some kind of AI or signature-based database that is updated? What kind of?
That's a good question. So I think short way to describe it is that in one of the slides was said that we are doing multi-layered detection and protection, which means that we are definitely doing IPS with we call them as rules. Then we are doing multi-layered detection with the malware. So we are using our centralized intelligence to do all kinds of checks and sandboxing and these kind of things in a virtual environment for detecting the malware. And then we are also doing collection of data globally that we are then refining in our data centers We are calling it as a Talos group nowadays. So it used to be Cisco SIO and SourceFire VRT, like the research teams. Now the combination is called Talos. So they are processing a massive amount of data each day to find these things also from the data globally. And then at the Cisco side, in our data centers, and at the customer side, in your environment, we are doing, I'd say, multi-layered correlation between these things as well. So it's not one process, you could say, that by doing this magic process you would find these things. It's more like the power of being multi-dimensional, multi-layered on analyzing the data. We start seeing things that just by doing one thing we wouldn't see anything about. It's correlating these feeds that gives us the ability to be more accurate and more, I'd say, better in a timely manner, to be earlier on detecting these things. So that's probably one of the reasons why we are also doing very well on these. If we would be talking about Microsoft 0 days, I don't know for how many years, but I would say at least 5 years, we have been always doing 100% on Microsoft vulnerabilities on that Tuesday. So that's like a proof of the capability of that process. I don't know if that was like thoroughly enough explained for you, but maybe it takes a bit more time to be more precise on how it actually works.
So basically we cannot do anything without subscription to Cisco?
No, actually not. So I'm the architect. Actually there's a nice thing called PX that allows us to actually gather information from other vendors also. And that's one of the things that you was referring. I will be bringing on my presentation how that can be actually used to gather information, not just from the network, perhaps, but from the endpoint devices, from different kind of other security solutions and kind of systems. And that's something which I will be covering on my presentation.
Yeah, that's well said. So that's obviously something you can get without a subscription, but I would say still would be a bit risky not doing the subscription as well, because the external information that you yet haven't seen in your environment, or without that information externally with that subscription, you wouldn't understand the event in your own environment the way that you can actually do when you combine this information together is still useful. So I would vote for that subscription as well. Surprise, surprise.
Let's say, can you estimate roughly? We unsubscribed from Cisco and we left at 50% of like security, or 60 or 90. How secure we are without a subscription?
Okay, so depending on the subscription obviously, but if we are referring back here, if you are using our new ASA firewall and you are subscribing the features, these detection features and intelligence for the firewall, I would say you are pretty safe,
yeah,
but not completely, even in our case.
How secure we are without it?
That's a hard question. Can you explain a bit more detail what you mean by that?
No, I just pure estimate, speculation on what would you say?
Well, I would actually answer your question in a way that even so, we are doing 99.2% over here. This is 99.2%. We are still missing stuff. Like all the other guys are missing some stuff. We are missing less than them, but we are also still missing stuff. And because of we are not able to pick all the stuff by the IPS signatures over here, means that we actually need to have this other bit of technology I've been using and showing here. So if we would do only IPS, we can do pretty much this one, this number, which is the best in the class with the next-gen firewall here. But if we didn't do anything else, that visibility, that integration with the other parts of the network, then we can fairly say that we won't be seeing that rest. And that rest might be exactly that 4 attacks that brings your environment down. So I don't know if that was the answer you were looking for, but that's the reality.
Okay, so do you have any more questions? Gal dar klausimų turit kokių?
Please.
Firepower, is it some type of software or it's a hardware model which we set into asset?
Firepower is software. So we can run it on all the new ASAX firewalls. And it's software, and you can order it as a subscription for that software. So it's extremely easy to deploy in that sense.
So I just update software on my asset?
Yes, if you have an X version of the ASA, then you can subscribe these features. There's a couple of technical details in the background. You know, we need to make sure that you have the SSD drive needed and so on, but basically it's that simple. Other questions? Please.
What about prevention? You mentioned that the system can integrate with third-party infrastructure. So can it, for example, close ports, or it just kills that traffic, or what kind of prevention?
Now you are actually getting to a very interesting area. I think Janne would be extremely happy to answer this answer this question. But are you addressing this in your?
I'm actually.
Do a very brief
also,
teaser now.
I'm paying money to ask these questions, so we can actually lure you guys to my presentation. But please come. So actually, we are discussing these topics. So actually, how to identify endpoints, how to do centralized policies, how to actually extract the information from the different sources, and how to actually automate and remediate on the network when we are seeing some problems here. So please come to my presentation. I hopefully at least answer some of your questions.
Are you saying, or should I be?
Please fill these feedback forms and I will get those there in the door and you will perhaps win something later on today.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you. Please fill in these. We appreciate the feedback.